Y'all ready?
This Thursday evening, an off day for the Marlins. I'm Ethan Madowski, Eli Sussman, Isaac Astute, Kevin Barral, and Claudia are joining us. Alex Carter is on his way along. We'll see who else decides to come and hang out. As the Marlins get ready for a weekend set with the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Marlins are coming off taking 2 of 3 from the division rival Nationals, and the Marlins will see the Nationals again right after this Pirates series, and it could be big for some implications in the division. But let's just talk about this series that just happened. Weird game yesterday. The Marlins battle back late in the ninth. They have some Anthony Bass trouble again, and I want to get into that in a second. But Isaac, just your overall impressions from this series as the Marlins take 2 of 3 from a team they need to take 2 of 3 of.
Yeah, no, exactly. That Nationals team is not very good, and I think the whole highlight of the whole series was just Jesus Sanchez and Lewin Diaz in the ball the way they did. And the bullpen was obviously a disaster yesterday's game, but just seeing Lewin really get comfortable and hitting the ball to the opposite field and having 2 doubles the day before and hit 2 home runs yesterday or 2 days ago, it was just great to see going opposite field. And Jesus Sanchez the same thing, opposite field and big clutch time home runs for Jesus. So I think he is all but secured a spot to start next year for sure.
Claudia, late in the season here, I've been asking a lot of our guests their kind of overall impression of the season, not just about last weekend's series. Obviously, I think it's been a big disappointment for a lot of us. So I'm just curious kind of how you evaluate what's going on late in the season here as the Marlins are kind of playing spoiler and trying to stay out of that last place spot in the NL East.
Well, since I took a 3-year hiatus from Marlins baseball, I don't know. I feel like I'm not too invested in high expectations, and it's played out well for me because honestly, if I had come into this with really high expectations, I feel like I would have been disappointed. But I don't know. It's just fun. It's fun to see. It's fun to be back. For a little while there, I stopped watching the games. I actually stopped attending. But with Lewin Diaz, with De La Cruz, Jesus Sanchez, I'm back.
I'm curious what brought you back this season. Was it the playoff run after last year? Just why the reinvestment now?
I actually came back because someone invited me on a date to go to, I think it was Sandy's second start of the season. And I was like, sure, I used to like baseball. I'll come back. And then I went to the game and I was there and I was like, man, I missed it. It. And I've been to 31 games since.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And Sandy will definitely bring a lot of people back, and understandably, because it was in this series, he was fantastic again. Last time out, goes 8 strong. He didn't break another strikeout record, this career strikeout record this time. I'm trying to pull up the stat line here. Obviously, he had that 14, that 9-inning, 14 strikeout performance. This time, only 8 innings, 1 hit, no walk, 7 Ks. Kevin, I think we've talked about this before, but Sandy allowing no walks in a game, and that becoming the standard almost, that none of us could have ever imagined that.
Yeah, I mean, he does it some way, somehow. If it's not 14 Ks, it's a no-hitter through 6 innings. And I am so sorry to everyone who, especially Noah and Alex. I know we were talking off stream, and I was telling them, yo, Sandy might get the no-hitter. And then they just told me to shut up, and I had no idea why. And then he gets the hit, and then they're like, they went crazy, and they blamed it on me for the no-hitter. So, fair enough. But yeah, Sandy does it some way, somehow to get these really good starts, and the Marlins coming in clutch for him, finally getting some run support, which is much needed on, especially for Sandy. I can't talk about the other 2 games since I did not watch them. And their reasons, Inter Miami is playing a lot better than the Marlins.
They're playing well.
And then a 105 game is not fun for me to watch during school, so I cannot do that either. So, I mean, I saw the Sandy start. I think that was the best game that last game, though, I mean, just looking at MLB app notifications, you're seeing Taylor Cruz home run, Jesus Sanchez home run. It's a back and forth. That was pretty cool to watch. I don't know how good Trevor was or how bad he was. I just know you mentioned he was capping at 94, Ethan. So that's not too good to hear. We want to see maybe 96, 97. Some Sandy Alcantara type speed velocity. But besides that, it was a good series for the Marlins. They did what they had to. Really just taking another step and not ending in the cellar, as we've mentioned many times.
As I keep thinking about this series, I realize that there's more and more I can ask about, and that's pretty weird for some of these late season series. Usually we kind of just quick recap and move on, but there's a couple of topics I want to bring up. First one, Eli, I wanted to go to you on is Jesus Lazardo. So he had been really great the last 3 times out, and then not as good this time. Really kind of got away from him. I think it got away from the bullpen more so, but only 4 1/3, 7 hits. I'm trying to find the amount of walks here. Just 2 walks, but only 1 strikeout as well. So just kind of what went wrong for him after it had been going right the last few times out.
I think the way I prefer to look at it is I didn't really buy into that narrative that he flipped a switch these last few starts. There is the one thing that people point to is that he, finally put on his glasses a few starts ago, and coincidence or not, that's when the performance started to tick up the way it did. But I think with that small sample, you're kind of just tying yourself into knots, trying to figure out what's real and what's not. And if you expand the whole sample, he's just been inconsistent this whole year, and especially since he came to the Marlins, where as kind of mediocre as this outing was, it was actually better than the first 4 or 5 that he had right after the trade. I prefer to look at him that way, where he's still a pretty messy project that they need to figure out. He's a guy that he has that good velo from the left side, and he has a really great swing and miss curveball, and kind of everything else is figuring out, including most importantly, being able to command all that. And when he doesn't have enough command of his stuff, he's just not getting into great counts, and he's not putting himself in a position for people to chase after that great curveball, and he doesn't get those strikeouts. So to me, I wasn't totally surprised that this was a step back, because to me, I didn't really see it as a step back, step forward in the first place. It's kind of just a bit of a seesaw with him right now. So yeah, to me, I'm still a little bit, concerned about that entire trade and how that went down, and what exactly they're going to do with him for next season, because no matter what he does these final few starts, you're still going to have these questions about what guy you're getting any individual day. There's really no great way to be able to trust him, at least at this point.
Yeah, another concern I had in this series when you talked about lefty starters, and Kevin mentioned it, is Trevor Rogers. And he only goes 4 innings, allows 7 hits, just the 1 run. So, again, he continues to limit damage, just the 3 strikeouts as well, though. And it just seemed like he couldn't put anybody away. And, Eli, I think, Isaac, were you watching that game?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. Eli, were you watching that game?
Yeah,
I have some questions.
Yeah, there's only 5 of us.
I was at home at the time just before class, so I was checking out the game before PSG started. But just what it's concerning a little bit, right? So he's throwing 92, 94, and it just seems like a tired arm that's thrown too much this year, would you say, Eli?
With him, the thing is, just the previous start 5 days ago, he had some of his best stuff of the entire season. He was cruising through 4, and then he hit that hiccup in the 5th inning. And that's a different story, where I felt he was totally fine his previous outing, and they kind of give him a really quick hook that was unnecessary. And obviously, when you see the stuff plummet like that so quickly, the first thing you think of is there's something wrong physically that drains your strength, and that's the reason why he didn't light up the gun. So I understand the concern that this happens. I wouldn't necessarily say they need to shut him down when he looked totally fine, 5 days before that. But no doubt it was disappointing. I'd say definitely for him more so than anybody else. You could see it on the mound that he was like, I don't feel right. You could see the way that he was reacting to some of the pitches that he was throwing, that he knew there was something wrong, and he didn't know exactly how to solve it in that moment for him. Just generally speaking, it's been a whole frustrating, second half for him, obviously, for things that were beyond his control as well. And I think when we take the really far back view of everything, that this has been a really successful year for him overall. Mm-hmm. It's just, unfortunately, when we talk about, that rookie of the year conversation, the momentum that he has is, totally gone at this point. When one of the last images you have of him is someone that couldn't get outs against, the depleted Nationals. Yeah. I mean, I understand why it's a frustrating moment. I wouldn't really overreact too much to that, other than to say that this whole second half for him has been really, really unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely think that month off has really affected him. He certainly hasn't come back looking like we had hoped. And I agree with you, Eli. I think that National League Rookie of the Year race is kind of over. As Alex Carver, welcome in, Alex. But Claudio, you mentioned two guys that I really want to talk about here because they were the big story of last series, and you said they're kind of what's keeping you around late in the season here, and it's Jesus Sanchez and Lewin Diaz. And all of a sudden, Marlins fans are kind of looking at these two, and they're looking at Jazz Chisholm, and they're looking at Brian De La Cruz, and then maybe you're looking at Burdick and Meisner playing well down in Double-A, and you're saying, okay, there are some bats here. So, Jesus and Lewin have back-to-back games with 2 home runs apiece. Obviously, really exciting for Marlins fans. Jesus is up to 12 now on the season, which in 200 plate appearances is really stunning for a rookie. So I'm just curious, Claudia, what do you like about what you see from these guys? And like I mentioned, does it make you feel good about this core that the Marlins are sort of developing on offense?
But yeah, I mean, we've always, I guess, since we lost Marte, we've been needing that outfielder. And, we have De La Cruz, who's one of, our best hitters right now. So.
Yeah, De La Cruz has been really fantastic. I mean, he just continues again. He hits a home run yesterday. And we're just saying, people keep saying that he's going to be the 4th outfielder. And I think if the Marlins have him as the 4th outfielder on opening day come 2022, they did really something really good this offseason. So Alex, since you just joined us, these are your guys, Jesus and Lewin. Talk to us about what you're seeing from them right now.
Yeah, man. Using all fields, I asked Manning about it. I'm sure you saw. He's also saying that he can do it. That he's showing he can do it against lefties, which is really good for him. And then Jesus, man, you have no idea how strong that guy is. Like that pitch that he hit for, I think it was the first home run. Man, that pitch is pretty much middle in, and he hits opposite field for a home run. Ridiculous strength, dude. So yeah, if he's cutting down the strikeouts and if he can prove this long term, they're both going to be really good players for sure long term.
Isaac, your thoughts, man?
Like Claudia said, once Marte left, the Marlins really needed someone to come, really take over and solidify an outfield spot. And Jesus Sanchez has really done that. Brian De La Cruz really came out of freaking nowhere. I know we all love the guy, and he's making it. I've been an advocate for the 4th outfield spot. He's a 4th outfielder. And Craig was really, advocating that as well on the previous stream. But you know what? If he continues hitting this way, I don't care if it's September or he played great in August, and he's hitting the ball really hard. He's hitting it he's impacting the baseball. He's hitting it over the fence. He's having good at bats. He's definitely, I would say, earned an opportunity to start next year. Not just being invited to spring training like Mish had said, but he has really come out of nowhere. And all of a sudden, the Marlins have 2 good outfielders that they can maybe pencil in as starters next year.
Yeah, that outfield is getting pretty interesting, and obviously we think that there's a big acquisition coming the Marlins' way, and this is kind of going to flow into what I want to get to next, which is we had Craig Mish out on the stream last time, and I think it went as well as any of us could have expected. Craig is just the greatest. He provided us with so much great information and kind of been digesting it all over the last few days, and talked about Jesus, talked about Lewin, talked about this, that, and the other. Kev, before we get into what you really wanted to go into today, which is the trade proposals, I'm just curious what your biggest takeaway was from what Craig had to say.
I think one of the biggest one was really Duvall. I mean, how high he was on Duvall, calling him a leader, and seeing how much the Marlins could have used this guy, not just this season, but the next one. I mean, and then something else that I really liked about was how he looked at first base. I mean, that was one of the questions I'd asked, how he saw first base next season, and that he preferred a guy like Cooper over Aguilar, even though I think a lot of us would in some scenarios. But health has been one of the biggest issues for Cooper. So that's the only reason why I wouldn't see Aguilar staying. But, I mean, Mish just threw – I mean, it was some little Mish bombs that we know about. how it was the Ben Marsh trade. He talked a little bit about that. It was a lot of interesting points, and I know you guys really have some good points to really talk about here.
I think the one I want to get to with Alex, because I know Alex feels pretty passionately about this one, is, I asked Craig about Bryson Brigman, and his quick answer was not ready defensively.
Yep.
Like I said at the time, it was nice to have an answer. It is still nice to have an answer. Again, whether that's the right or wrong answer is up for debate, especially considering they're playing Jorge Alfaro in left field. And, we all kind of agree that Isan has played a pretty good third base, but do you feel better or worse, Alex, after knowing that that's the reason Brigman has not made it to the big leagues yet?
Well, if that is the explanation, and I definitely trust Craig, that's a terrible explanation. I mean, it's just another bad explanation from the front office. Eli put the stat at the bottom of the screen. The guy's only committed 5 errors. He's played 3 spots
all season, almost 100 games at a bunch of different positions.
I put the video on Twitter for all of you guys to see it. Eli has seen it as well, and he's done this multiple times where he's flipping the ball out of his glove. He's making plays without a glove on his hand, and he's been bad defensively. The range is good. He's great with the glove. The arm may be the question, and maybe that's the question, and they want to put him at third base. If that's the explanation, then it's valid. And Isan, as you said, Ethan has played good at third base. So if they're thinking about putting him at third base, which is he hasn't spent a lot of time there, he can play it and he's okay, but he's much better as a shortstop, which he could play there when Miggy's out. And second, he's not going to play there. That's his natural position. So I guess looking at the explanation when I was thinking about it after we left the stream, my thinking is not ready at third base. If that was the explanation, I could accept it. But the fact that they said not ready defensively, period, is horrible. And I tried to ask Craig if they're going to protect him in the Rule 5. He said he didn't know. So this is a guy that could very well walk for nothing, because I think that many teams could use him as a utility piece. And here we are with Joe Panic and Isan Diaz, and it is what it is. But yeah, I hated the explanation. You said it, Ethan. It's good to have the explanation that's what they think. But I really disagree with the not ready defensively. Period. At certain positions, yes, but he's ready defensively at other positions. Period.
Eli, I'm curious. You mentioned that stat. Has he played a lot of third base, or has it not been a lot of third base, and so they don't really know what they're trying to figure it out?
Well, it's only been a little bit of third base. He's a middle infielder, by trade. A lot of shortstop and a lot of second base. And if I remember correctly, this year, it was more shortstop than anything else. Which generally, if you play well at shortstop at the highest minor league levels, that bodes well for being able to translate to other positions. The bottom line isn't so much about being certain about what he can do. It's possible that he falls on his face once he reaches the major leagues. I can't be really convinced about that. It's just the contrast. It's all about, making decisions between one player or another player. And the fact that they have Isan and Joe Panic and Eddie Alvarez all on the team right now, and they don't have Brigman on the team, it's so irresponsible to manage your organization like that when you have, of course, as Alex has pointed out a bunch of times, somebody that is Rule 5 eligible this offseason anyway. So that if you're going to leave him unprotected, just to use those guys I named, one in Joe Panic, who I know you were excited when they made that trade based on what he'd done 7 years ago, but he's washed at this point, unfortunately.
Of course.
And Eddie Alvarez is a great story, but he's a guy far enough along in his pro baseball career that it shouldn't really be a priority to get him in the majors. To have him around the organization is a big asset, but for him to even be on the roster right now, I don't think that's very productive for everybody involved. And then with Isan is the one that we've gotten throughout this entire year. He's gotten way more opportunities than anybody could have imagined. And I guess the only thing you could say that works in his favor is that he is seemingly really comfortable at third base defensively for the most part. He still makes mistakes, but that has been a pleasant surprise from that aspect of the game. It's just that in every other aspect of the game, I don't think he compares well to Brigman. And they're like the same age, and it's amazing that we've actually done this, that we've actually made it through the season without seeing him. I'm still kind of in shock about that, even though it's a little decision in the grand scheme of things. When you follow the team this closely, we seem to feel when Ethan, you and I spoke to him in like
Yeah.
June, and
I thought he was going to be up soon.
we
100%.
felt really convinced that at some point he's going to make it up, and it's just the one little decision that we were wrong about, in that there's still, even with that alibi that Mish put out, I'm still I have no idea what they're thinking with that.
And just to
And
give you the
quickly,
number,
when it comes to
Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
yeah,
I was just going to give you the number on games at third base. It's 3 career games at third base, and they were all this year. So, as we said, hasn't played a lot there. If that's where they're looking to get him the time, then it becomes a little bit more understandable. But when you're looking at a guy that definitely has proven it that he could do it at AAA versus a guy like Joe Panic or Isan Diaz, who continue to struggle at least offensively, then it's very, very hard to excuse any reason as to why that guy has not been called up. And other guys as well. But I mean, it just goes back to exactly what Craig said. It's inexcusable decision making, and he said it too, that minor league players talk to each other. So we probably know that, knowing Bryson, that he's down there going, "What the hell? Why am I not there?" You were in attendance and you yelled at Brian Miller that you should be there over Magnetic.
Hey, that didn't happen. What are you talking about?
Okay,
What are you talking about?
That didn't happen. Okay,
That didn't happen.
okay,
That didn't happen. Nobody heard that from me.
Whatever.
That was a little birdie over my shoulder.
Yeah, I got you. Anyways, you're right, and they're right to feel that way. So,
Of course,
anyways,
I can understand his frustration for sure, and Brian Miller's frustration as well. He was there for a series, and he had a 13 pitch at bat, and he had a base hit in the game I was at, and then he didn't play again. So I can understand his frustration. You can see it on the faces. A guy like Monte, who's been up and back. AAA has to be, out of all the MILB levels, AAA has to be the most frustrating, because you're right there, and to play an entire season at that level has to be just excruciating. But yeah, I mean, obviously the thing is Brigman's not going to play second base. He's not going to play shortstop, because those positions are on lock right now. He can spell those guys on their days off, but if you want to get him every day at bats, he's got to be ready for third base. But what does it matter? It's September. It's that's when you give out. That's when you do these experiments. And as September's winding down, Craig talked with us about Peter O'Brien, right? That's why September doesn't mean anything. That's why everybody is a little worried about Brian De La Cruz, because it doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Yeah,
but,
Ethan, one thing I want to say about that in meaningless September games is I do feel, the downside, of course, that they didn't have rosters as expanded as they used to be.
Yeah.
There's obvious drawbacks to that, but I feel it makes the games more legitimate a little bit. The fact that you don't have 23-man pitching staffs, that most of the people that are on the roster with those, few expanded spots, that they are all there for the most part for a reason, or more so than they used to be. There's still big differences. The most obvious one being that not all teams are trying to win. We've seen it even with the way that the Marlins manage some of these games, where it's not a priority on trying to win, even during the games themselves. So there are plenty of noise in there for sure, but maybe not quite as much as they used to be, which is it's just something that's been floating around in my mind. And I think it's going to be easier to process that once we get through the end of the year. But at the same time, that's one of the little things that keeps me still interested, is that it does feel a little more like normal baseball, the way that they've done it.
Claudia, I want to get you back in here, because I'm not sorry, Kev, because I'm not sure how much of the Mish stream you heard, but it was kind of all talking about 2020 and just what gets us excited, what gets him excited. And I'm curious, as a fan, you've been going to a lot of these games this year. You're getting back into the team, even despite the disappointing season, which you were really smart for not setting your expectations high, by the way, because I think a lot of people did that and they kind of screwed themselves, because at the end of the day, the reality of this team is, I said 70 to 75 wins, and there's a real possibility here that they get to 70 wins with the way the schedule sets up in the back half. So I'm just in the back stretch, I should say. So I'm just curious, from going to these games, from being around the team, from following, what gets you ready to be at the ballpark on opening day 2022 and be excited about this team in September?
Well, I think it helped that I didn't watch any game last year. So it wasn't like, oh my God, I'm expecting that. So what gets me ready for next year is the hope that maybe we have seen enough of Isan Diaz. I think he got a really solid chance at proving himself in the beginning of the season, when it could have been competitive. And right now in the second half, I mean, he didn't prove himself competitively. So, yeah, I mean, we have to give the other guys chances, like Bridgman. And I like that Mish said he's not ready defensively, whether or not you believe that.
Right.
So, I
Yeah.
mean,
Go ahead. Sorry, finish.
it's a little old just seeing these Joe Panics and these Isans and these Brinsons, because we have good prospects.
Yeah, no, I think that's something that I was listening to Craig and kind of hearing him say, I've been getting worried that these guys do have some futures with the team, but it doesn't really sound like any of them. I think Brinson probably has the best chance of having a future with the team next season, just because he's at least shown something this year. I would say he had that great stretch, Brinsanity that everybody got really excited about, and he's got as many homers as Christian Yelich does this year, unless Yelich homered in the last couple of days. But so at least he's shown a little bit of something, to the point where you say, okay, if the Marlins need a fifth outfielder, he's the guy that you might choose based on everything that's going down right now. I love what Aram said about should the Marlins try Mags at third base. I mean, at this point, Alfaro's going to be playing shortstop in a couple weeks. So, but Daniel Rodriguez, welcome in. It's good to have you as always, buddy. From your time on the Mish stream, and then just what you've digested over the past couple days, your biggest takeaway, would you say, from what Mish had to say?
I came in hearing about Isan Diaz and like Bryson Brigham and him not ready defensively. Those are some of the takes that he had that maybe caught me a little off guard. That one, I believe he talked about free agency and how the Marlins, well, like everyone guessed, aren't going to be big spenders, aren't going to, try to get the big fish. They're looking for little fish and very little ponds. And it's just, it's just basically the same old from the Marlins. What we heard from Ish, it's just really disappointing to see, the Marlins, they said they were ready for 2021, making a playoff push after 2020, and nothing. It's almost 100 losses. Thank God. I don't think it's going to be 100 losses this year, but I'm just hopeful for 2022.
Now I'm curious, are you upset because they're not going the free agent route, and you would rather see them go the free agent route than the trade route? What is kind of your preferred style of handling this offseason, Daniel?
I'll go the free agency because
that made me crack up just in the comment.
Why not? We can use
That's
them.
comment of the year so far. That's the one that one comment that has stopped the show all year. That is comment of the year. Shout out to you, Nathan I. Lots and lots of numbers. Shout out to you, Daniel. I'm sorry for interrupting you. Go ahead.
No, probably free agency, because I like spending money on free agents, because when you get big money free agents, that's what brings in fans. Imagine Marlins spend money and you bring in a guy like Corey Seager or Carlos Correa, which would really help with the Hispanic community there, someone like that. I think when you get big key free agents, you get big returns on the fans, because when you spend money, the fans realize, okay, they actually want to help the team. They actually want to help the franchise, help the fan base. And when you spend big, that's how fans react. Fans don't react when you see a 38-year-old out of shape player who gets a minor league contract, or a guy who's like 10 years in the minor leagues. That doesn't really excite the fan base at all. And that's what I want to see. I want to see the Marlins spend money. I'm not talking 2 years, $8 million. I'm talking anywhere 50, 80, maybe 100, but we saw what happened last time the Marlins did something like that.
Yeah, my guy, from just kind of digesting everything over the last couple of days, I'm looking at Nick Castellanos, and I'm saying that is the perfect acquisition for the Marlins. If they surprise us and they decide to splash the cash, which Craig argued that they might not even be in a position to do that yet, because they have to make so many improvements through trades, that you say, okay, give it another year or two, get more competitive, and then go out and really spend on a big fish out in free agency. So a guy like Chris Bryant, somebody else, not maybe in play. But I just look at Nick Castellanos and I think local kid, left field, corner outfielder, high average power. He would hit 50 to 60 doubles in Lone Depot Park, with how great of a doubles hitter he is. And I'm just looking at it and I'm saying if they go out and spend money in free agency and they decide to really be a player, which I'm not sure, I don't think they will. And I also am not ruling it out completely like some people are, but it just doesn't seem like them. I think they're going to go for a big trade. I think they're going to go big trade is going to be their move this offseason. But I'm just sitting there and I'm looking at Castellanos and I'm like, how could you not make a play for this guy? And so to me, that would be, if they're going to go after somebody, that would be it. But again, I don't see it. So Isaac, but overall for me, I was listening to that stream and I came away pretty encouraged in terms of he still thinks they're going to go out and get a center fielder. He thinks they're going to go out and get a catcher. Probably a free agent signing in the corner outfields, that might be one of those kind of like value signings for a guy like Rosario or somebody that wouldn't excite me as much. Maybe a guy to compete with Taylor Cruz. But Isaac, overall, just what you saw as the biggest thing that Craig brought us.
I mean, it was a little disappointing to hear that, like, if not this year, then next year. I mean, hey, this is year 5, we're not even close. So what bothered me was that if we're going to go the trade route for the biggest holes, which is center field and catcher, which they probably will, and then they have one team that can satisfy both those needs in Pittsburgh. So if they go that route and satisfy those two, they have no reason not to spend, allocate all the money that they didn't spend. They didn't use it in a trade and go sign someone like Nick Castellanos. This is year 5. No, this isn't year 2, year 3. This is year 5. Last year of Jeter's contract. So there's no reason here. So now I think the only guy under contract, Eli, correct me if I'm wrong, is Anthony Bass for next year.
We'll
get to that in a second. We'll get to that. Okay. Yeah. What were you saying, Eli?
Well, as of tomorrow, that's when Miguel Rojas officially locks in his contract for.
Miguel Rojas and Anthony Bass is the only 2 guys officially under contract for next year. How do you not if Craig was saying that they have to win next year, make the big trades and sign some guys, sign some big fish. But we'll see if they do it. But I'd be pretty disappointed if they don't spend. Obviously, I'm not trying to spend other people's money. Bruce Sherman's a smart guy. And it's not my place to spend other people's money, but they have to show, like Daniel said, they have to show the fans that, hey, we're eager to win right now. Because it's been 4 years of nothing.
I think the best way to do that if they're going to go to trade route is not to get Brandon Marsh, is not to get maybe like an Ian Happ or somebody like that. Get an established guy, right? Marsh has looked pretty solid, but there's huge strikeout concerns. Hasn't been great. Only 1 home run over in Anaheim so far. And it's exciting, but if you're going to move on from a guy like Max Meyer, and I'm watching, and Alex, I'm watching your tweets last night, and I'm looking at Max Meyer, and I'm like, trade anybody else. Like, find a way to trade anybody else but that guy, because he looks like he's going to be so fantastic. So, Kevin, you came in and you told us, and I don't know how many of us did this, but you told us to find a Brian Reynolds, Jacob Stallings trade. So I'm curious what you came up with.
I just threw in names. I actually did not come up with the trade offer, but I mean, if you really look at it, you're gonna have to include one of the pitchers, Eliezer. Now, if you do it for both Stallings and Reynolds, Max Meyer, I think would have to be in the deal, because originally I would have tried to put Eater in there, and maybe you have to add more players because it's Eater and he's not as valuable as Meyer most likely. But yeah, you're gonna have to add Meyer. You would have to get one of the young guys. Salas is a pretty good option to really throw in there. Connor Scott. I mean, you add one of the Mesa brothers. I think it would be the worst one. And at this point, I don't even know which one's better than the other one. But I mean, it's going to be a haul. It's going to be an absolute haul that they would have to give up for both of them. Now, if you say, all right, let's not go for Reynolds and let's sign an outfielder, a center fielder, you only go for Stallings, you won't have to give up Meyer, in my opinion. I think you could give up Eliezer, you give up a Kyle Nicholas. I think that may be a little bit – I think that would be enough. Maybe you add a sweetener. You maybe add Brigman in there. If you're really not going to call up this guy, you add him in there as a sweetener. So that would be some kind of a deal.
The younger one, by the way, is probably the better one.
Yeah. Alex like just nodding down. They're not liking the trade scenarios because I know he had a couple of his own. So, yeah.
Alex, I want to talk to you about Meyer. Obviously, to get value, you got to give up value. And the Marlins are trying to get a lot of value here if they're going to go after a guy like Brian Reynolds. That is a piece that could really change the offense, especially if they do the right moves around him. And then also to get Stallings, obviously, like his defense is great, and I'm not super low on his offense, but it would still be a huge upgrade over what the Marlins have had at catcher, this year. So talk to me, man. Like, is there anybody else that the Marlins can move besides this guy? Because you don't want to give up on him, right?
Well, I don't want to give up on a lot of guys. You guys are out on some guys that I'm still not out on. So I don't give up on guys too early, as you guys know. So I'm still not out on Victor. You know that, Ethan. I'll fully admit it. I still think he could do it. Anyways, and you said it absolutely correct. So to get value, you got to give value. I think if you're talking specifically about Pittsburgh Pirates, this team is rebuilding again, from the ground up. They want young, controllable players. Probably at the lower ends of the minor league system. So in this case, I don't think you're talking about Eliezer, maybe not even Nicholas, because he was a college guy. I'm talking about really younger guys at the lower ends of the system. And if you really want to throw names, I think the names that would be asked for, one of them is Yuri Perez, for sure. They would definitely ask. Doesn't mean we have to do. The Marlins have to do it, but he's going to be asked for. Another one is Salas, who Kevin mentioned. They'll ask for him. Another one could be Khalil Watson. They would ask for him. That's the kind of players that they would be asking the Marlins for. I really don't think it would be established or even collegiate players. Maybe if you're talking about Stallings alone, you could get it done for a guy like Nicholas. But if you're talking about getting both, they're going to get a haul, and it's going to be some of those younger prospects in the FCL, DSL, Jupiter levels like that. That's what they're going to want for their long-term future. And when you're talking about bringing back two controllable players that have proved it at the major league level, you got to expect to give up stuff like that. Like Craig said on the stream, they're going to give up a guy that you're not going to like. They're going to give up Meyer, to bring back somebody, maybe if I think Meyer's more likely if they were to trade with a team that's not as far away, such as the Angels, who have some pieces. They just need to build around it, especially in terms of pitching. So, I think the further away you get from teams that are competitive, the younger prospects they're going to want, the earlier they are in their rebuild, the younger guys they're going to want. And those are the names you really have to talk about when you're talking about the Pirates. And it's going to take more because those guys are a lot less polished and a lot less proven. So that's what I think you're looking at in terms of a Pirates trade is the younger level prospects. Definitely if you're talking about getting both of those pieces back.
I've kind of locked myself into Brian Reynolds, but I'm also looking at Byron Buxton. And I hear Craig say that the Marlins are going to kind of dig around on Byron Buxton. And I'm looking at that and I'm saying, that might be the guy. Yeah, that might be the guy, and obviously would have to come with a guaranteed extension, but that might be the guy to me. And I'm really looking at the fact that the Twins need pitching, and they need pitching that's near the major league. So I think they make a really, really good match for the Marlins. One thing that I want to get to here, and Fish Stripes has an article out about this today, and it's Anthony Bass. And by the way, you want to talk about Brian Reynolds and Jacob Stallings? They're coming into town this week. So the Marlins will get a up-close and personal look at those two guys in this series. This will Marlins fans, and you kind of see what kind of player Brian Reynolds is. Just saw it in Pittsburgh last time, just a fantastic hitter. And again, a guy that I would love, it would be great for the Marlins to have. But I lost my train of thought. Okay, back to the Bass thing. So this is something I've been wanting to get to for a while now. And Louis Deo Weiss writes this great article about Bass and how it's time. The Marlins just got to cut their losses, and with clearly more help needed in the bullpen. And I think a lot of the help could come internally. I think some of these young guys that you're looking at, could move to the pen for next year. Meyer is one guy that I would obviously love to see him as a starter, but in an emergency need next year, I wouldn't mind seeing him in the bullpen at all. But with this bullpen, obviously a lot of the talk was about the revamped bullpen coming into the season, right? Everybody was all excited about it. And then Craig tells us that Bass is kind of where it all went wrong for the Marlins. So, Claudia, I'm going to start with you here. Do the Marlins just cut their losses and just, he's owed $2.5 million next year or something like that. Just say fuck it and just get rid of the guy?
I say yes because he pissed me off yesterday.
Yesterday was just
so I tweet something about a player that's not, very positive. I have to block them just because, I don't want to get personal. So I had to block him yesterday, and then I had to, bite my tongue. But
Yesterday was just another example of the whole Bass experiment gone wrong, right? Comes in the ninth, Somebody will have to remind me in the 7th, which has been his inning.
Right.
Everybody's been talking about, well, he's been great everywhere but the 9th, and he's been great in the 7th, and he's been great in low leverage situations, just when it's not the 9th inning basically, or not closing it out, or not a tie game or whatever, and then he comes in and he gets 2 outs, lets up 2 hits, 2 runs, walks 2. And that was on a day Louis talked about where he had some of his best, he had great control. And this season has been some of the best control he's ever had, and he's still walking guys at a crazy rate.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy to me that this guy, it really has been kind of where it all went wrong for the Marlins, because we talked about the 1-run losses. I think I tweeted something today that they're like 17-26. They've won like 39% of those games or something, which we all thought was unsustainable throughout the season. And it's balanced out a little bit, but it's still a ridiculous number. And I'm just looking at it and I'm just saying, like, Eli, I'll go to you here. Just move on. We talk about how the Marlins have to move on from Isan and Sierra and stop giving so many guys chances. After 1 year, it's time to just move on and try and go again at the bullpen, because bullpen guys are so volatile.
I wasn't totally in agreement with that conclusion that Lewis came to, and that I understand why people are into it. To me, the biggest mystery, the biggest undoing of Bass isn't anything to do with being clutch or not. It really is as simple as his platoon splits. Like, he is still very good against right-handed batters, and he is like not any better than any of us when it comes to facing lefty batters. Like, he is an automatic, like, he gets absolutely destroyed when he doesn't have that platoon advantage. The one thing that I just don't understand with him is why he totally ditched his splitter. Like, he used to be a 3-pitch guy, a fastball, a slider, and a splitter. And his first appearance as a Marlin this year, he screws up the game and he gives up the home run on a splitter. And then he almost got scared away from throwing it. He's barely used it at all this entire season ever since then. I feel it's been holding him back. That was something that he even spoke about entering this year, that was going to be an important part of his mix to, like, make him really reliable against all types of opponents. And for whatever reason, he has not come back to it at all. I feel like that is what's caught up to him. And I feel like that's something that over an off season of reflection, of whatever he needs to do, that thing can come back pretty quickly. As disappointing as some relievers can be, when you're a guy like him that has a pretty long track record of being a solid major league guy, I don't think you ever want to overreact to one bad year, especially when he does have that contract that's already in play. And at the end of that contract is a club option for 2023. Right. And even though at this moment, none of you can even imagine wanting to even have him around in 2023, it's just the history of relievers is that they're so volatile. This stuff, it snaps on and snaps off when you least expect it to. So I'm not in any hurry to ditch him, although I guess I wouldn't. I'm obviously not opposed to them making that decision either, but I don't want to be overly emotional about something like this, even though it's been an issue throughout the entire year. And I understand exactly where people are coming from, that the history of relievers, and especially guys like him, say that, it's not a lost cause yet.
When you look at these platoon splits, sorry, couldn't get that one out. 308 average against for batters, for lefties, 1.70 whip. You're looking at 4.03 homers per 9, 9.12 FIP, which is just ridiculous. And then you turn around and go to the right side, and it's 2.48 FIP, 1.07 whip, 188 average against, 0.27 homers per 9. And it just feels like every time he's out there, he's doing pretty good, and then he just lets up a homer, and it just like throws away all the good graces that he has. And you talk about the volatility of bullpen arms, Eli, and it is a reason that you can say, okay, he can just turn this right around next year. And it's a reason I've said in the past not to spend big money on relievers, because it just, Kirby Yates is out for the year, and whoever Trevor Rosenthal, right, who the A's signed, hasn't thrown a pitch this year, and Brad Hand, big money for the Nationals, was terrible. And you got to look at it, and Kyle Bearclaw, the Marlins held on to him for too long, and God, Adam Conley. I mean, that experiment went by the wayside after holding on to him for too long. And so I kind of look at that and I'm like, okay, you don't really want to spend too much on the bullpen, but you can still find really nice bullpen pieces in one offseason. And if you go cheap in the bullpen and find, gems in the rough, diamonds in the rough, like a guy like what we've seen from Zach Pop this year, and I think that he can be a player in the bullpen next year. Anthony, look where the Marlins got Anthony Bender from. He was on the Milwaukee Milkman or whatever last year. You know what I mean? So you're looking at that, and you're like, okay, bullpens can be built pretty easily through, cheap free agent deals. So Isaac, I'm curious, do the Marlins start all over with the bullpen, or do they kind of, try and piece it together in house?
I mean, well, first of all, Anthony Bass made me look pretty shitty yesterday, bro. I was advocating him. I was telling him, hey, he looks filthy. He strikes out.
You got exposed on Twitter, man.
He made Cuban look bad. He made Mercer look bad. And I was like, you know what? Bass looks good. And then, wow. And I also blame Isan Diaz for that. You can't walk as many guys as Anthony Bass does. But right away, Craig Mish exposed me pretty hard on that. I just had to mention that really quick. But regarding the bullpen, I told Kevin this on the podcast. I don't think they're in such a bad position as one might think. I think they're one or two, shutout, strikeout kind of guys away from having it be a decent bullpen, especially if they hang on to Zach Thompson and Eliezer. But I would definitely go out and sign a couple, like $3-4 million 1 year guys that have some experience, maybe closing, or just that guys that strike out more than 9 per 9 innings, because they got a bunch of pitch to contact guys in the bullpen, and even in Marlins Park, it doesn't work.
Yeah, that was one thing I really had a problem with, was just their approach to the bullpen in general. Getting a guy in Bass, and what's funny is the Marlins relievers have the 6th best ERA in all of baseball at 3.68 somehow, which doesn't really make any sense. But it somehow it's true that the bullpen really hasn't been as bad as it seems, when it comes to an ERA standpoint, but they don't really strike anybody out. They obviously have a bunch of blown saves. They've been really bad in situational, 23 blown saves this year in clutch situations. They've been really bad. But they still have some good pieces. But I think the overall philosophy in the bullpen is the problem, and it's why I had a problem with them not keeping a guy like Jordan Holloway in the bullpen, earlier this year, because they need that big power stuff out of the bullpen, that big 97 with a big hook, kind of like what Anthony Bender is bringing out there. And I'm looking at that guy and Jordan Holloway and some of these other, arms that they have with big wipeout stuff. And I'm saying, why are those guys not back there? So George Guzman is a guy that I really wanted to work out in the back end of the bullpen, and I think the Marlins had the right idea trying to get him into the back end of the bullpen. Obviously, it didn't work out because he can't really throw a lot of strikes and doesn't throw any strikes, and he can't stay healthy either. But it's unfortunate for the Marlins. And I don't really think they have to start over. I just think they kind of have to look at their ideology about the bullpen differently and put different kind of stuff out there. And I kind of look at Eliezer with that fastball slider combination. Obviously, it's not super hard, but it's still a really good fastball slider combination that I think would work really well out of the bullpen. But I think with his changeup coming along, some team will see that and be like, okay, we can turn this guy, with a good bullpen like Craig talked about, we'll be like, we can get 5 good innings out of this guy every 5 days and be happy with it. So
can I bring up a name?
Yeah,
for you?
Go ahead, Alex. Go ahead. Yeah.
It's not the name that Isaac wants me to talk about, but I'll talk about him too if you want. But the other name is Colton Hawk. And I know we've talked about him very briefly, I think very much earlier this year. That guy leads all of AA baseball in saves. He has 19 saves for the Wahoos, or at least leads the AA South. I don't know if it's all of AA. I have to double check. But anyways, he has 19 saves. He has a 1.22 whip, 55-15 strikeouts to walk ratio. Rule 5 eligible. I know this is becoming my thing, like to mention all these guys that are becoming Rule 5 eligible that haven't been on the Marlins. But here's another one. Why has he not been here this year? Another question to ask. But I guess I just want to bring his name up because I think he could be good in a high leverage position, or at least in a bullpen position. He could definitely be good because he does have pretty decent velocity and a really good slider. So that's a guy who I would love the Marlins to at least give a look to, at least protect him from the AAA portion of the Rule 5 draft, and give him a chance next year because I think he could be good. And then the other one's Tommy Eveld, who has been around for a while. He's been hurt a lot. Pitching in AAA, I think his ERA is not fantastic, but that happens when you pitch in AAA. So, yeah, those two guys for sure. Protect him from at least the AAA portion and give him a shot in spring training because I think it could be good.
Yeah, Tommy Evo, actually, his ERA is much better than Colton Hawk so far in AAA. He's got a 3.60 ERA, 10.8 Ks per nine, and he's just a cool personality that with that mustache and touchdown Tommy thing that he's got going on that everybody kind of wants to see, I think, at this point. So, yeah, the bullpen, I think they can kind of rework in-house, but, Alex, I'll go around and ask the rest of the people. So, Claudia is ready to move on from Bass. Eli is not ready to move on from Bass. I'll go around and then we'll get into prediction time because we're about 9 minutes away from 7 o'clock now. Alex, what are your thoughts on what the Marlins should do with Bass this coming offseason?
Yeah, no, I'm kind of aligned with Eli. I wouldn't say like completely just trash the guy and give up on him because this is relieving, man. That's what it is. You're going to have your up days and you're going to have your down days. And yeah, Bass has had more down days than up days for sure. He's given up a lot of home runs. That's what he's got to fix. I would take him out of the closing position, absolutely, but I would not give up on him completely. I think he could turn it around. And that's just how relievers are. Like I said, it's very volatile. There's going to be days when you're the hero, and there's going to be days where you're the GOAT. And it just so happens that Bass has had more days as the GOAT. It is what it is. I'm sure he understands that. We see his Twitter posts. It seems like he definitely understands how to fail. So that's something that's really good about baseball players. Just talk to Meisner. Understand how to fail. Because in baseball, you're going to fail a lot. So, yeah, man, I'm not giving up 100%. So I think he could turn it around, but it definitely hasn't been a good year. That's for sure. And this was our big signing, right? This was like they did the jersey and the tour at Marlins Park, and you wanted to see him do really well. And, it hasn't happened. But I wouldn't say throw him out completely, but I would take him out of the closer spot. Yeah,
at first, when I was seeing people talk about the Anthony Bass hype video, I was kind of like rolling my eyes a little bit. But as things have played out the rest of the year, it's kind of like, wow, like that was the guy that got the big free agent hype video, not even Duvall or who's, by the way, the NL RBI leader in over 100 RBIs and 35 home runs right now. Which that trade just blew up in their face entirely. Daniel Rodriguez, thoughts on Anthony Bass?
I mean, you mentioned it when, you make a big announcement and it's Anthony Bass and then you see what he's doing. It doesn't feel well just for the organization because, he's just not had the best of years. And, he's really struggled in the closing role, like Alex and Eli said. But if he continues to do well around the 7th, 6th inning, then he's worth keeping around. But then if he starts giving up 4, 3 earned runs, blowing games, then, I'll kick him to the curb. I'll try to trade him. It's not worth it when you have a guy like that just giving up runs, and the Marlins just need to win games. They don't need, another closer or a reliever to do, Heath Bell syndrome. We don't need another one like that. So I just hope that, maybe Bass figures it out. Take him out of the closing role. Leave that to someone else. Maybe sign a closer in the offseason. Who knows? Put Bender there. But I'll leave Bass in the middle of the game, 6, 7 innings.
Yeah,
I just based on. Sorry.
Isaac, go ahead.
I would let him go. I would bring him to spring training next year. Obviously, just have a really short leash with him because there's been times this year where he quietly has pitched really well in those low leverage situations, and he can be valuable. He's kind of like a major league umpire where unless he's shitting the bed, you don't know about his good innings pitch because it just goes down quietly. We're just so used to him being really crappy. But I would definitely bring him in next year. Obviously, knowing the Marlins, they're not going to just shed that money for no reason. So he'll be here next year, and just in May and in June, if he's really not pitching well, definitely cut him loose.
I would be very surprised.
It seems like everybody thinks that this guy hasn't done anything good. You know what I mean?
No, he's had great stretches. Very good stretches.
That's what it is with relieving, though. It's a lot like being a manager too, a professional manager. When a manager makes a great call to pinch hit a guy, they don't get credit for it. But when they pull somebody early in a no hitter or something, then they get blown up for it. So it's the same thing with relieving in baseball games. You're going to be remembered for the bad and not remembered for the good. And Bass has had some good moments for sure. So don't throw him away yet.
Yeah, I just can't imagine him being the closer next year. They need to find somebody else back there to really shut it down back there. But Kevin, your thoughts on whether the Marlins should keep Anthony Bass or cut him loose?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much I could agree with what Eli and Alex said that, not just dump him out because, at the end of the day, he's going to hold some value for some really low A prospect if you really want to trade the guy that badly. But, yeah, Craig said it. I mean, it started with Anthony Bass. The season pretty much got crapped on because Anthony Bass couldn't save a game. And in that same breath, I will say Yimi Garcia couldn't save a fucking game at one single time at the end. Fucking Atlanta Braves had like a 6-run lead, but we'll get into that another day. You know, Anthony Bass is a guy who holds a special place in my heart because he was one of the first guys who I ever interviewed, you know, when I started doing this kind of stuff. So I mean, I would let him go if he's just not doing good whatsoever, if it gets to that point. But I mean, he has been quietly pretty good at some point. I mean, throughout the season, he just can't pitch the 9th inning for some reason. I mean, that's what we brought him in for. And I completely forgot they gave him a stadium tour and they gave him a hype video and everything. I completely forgot. I'd rather do that for Duvall than him or even Brinson at some point. But yeah, I think it's just have him on a short leash, see what happens. If it goes wrong, you could just trade him for a low A guy or whatever you could trade him for at this point. But yeah, Duvall, I think he's on a short leash.
Yeah, I'm kind of the opposite of you guys. I would just say screw it and just do it. You know, at this point, they need to get relentless in some facet, right? They need to just cut ties, cut the crust off the shit sandwich. And I understand, you know, everything you guys are saying in terms of he does have value and he can still kind of turn it around, but just I want to move on from this year kind of, and I want to see them kind of move past this year. And I think one of the big downfalls of this year was Anthony Bass. And if for nothing more than just kind of optics and just seeing them get a little aggressive and saying, we're not going to put up with any bullshit. You know, this is an accountability based organization from all accounts within inside the organization. If that's the truth, then cut some of these guys, get rid of them and just say fuck it and just move on, because at some point they have to get past some of the losing that has been ingrained into this organization for so long. And
well, look at the history, Ethan. You know, like, they don't do that.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I want to see. I don't think it's going to happen, but at some point they got to start doing it. You know,
something that Mish mentioned in the last, you know, in our last stream was that something that the Marlins are trending to do, especially with guys like Isan Alfaro, all these guys that just don't deserve to be on an MLB roster, that they're trying to squeeze them out to the last pennies that they can. But you know, Isan Alfaro, these guys are like on the depth already. Like they owe money to this team at this point. But Anthony Bass is to the point where, I mean, it's getting there, but I mean, he still has some time. I mean, it's just a short leash. If he just does not play well spring training, that's when you really consider, all right, let's let this guy go, or let's try to first look for a trade, you know, see if you could just ship him off, get something back for the guy, because you can't just lose your supposed star free agent signing for nothing. You know, you got to get some kind of value back. If not, you just let him go and you say, you know, thank you for your time in Miami. And, you know, I think the first time we ever heard of this guy was in Toronto when Francisco Cervelli hit that game time homer.
That
was the moment when, you know, he was going to sign with the Marlins and everything was going to go to shit from there for him.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing to mention, Ethan, is you have to pay the guy still, right? Right. Like even if you cut him next year, you got to pay him, and the Marlins aren't going to throw away that money. They are not in a position to throw away that money, even with the added money that they have. They're not just going to say, "Oh yeah, we'll pay you for next year. You won't be on the team. You'll be somewhere else." So, and they're not going to find somebody to trade for his contract either.
And you look at it, and the Marlins have options in free agency they could really go for. And one I've always been an advocate of is Andrew Chaffin. That guy's been pretty good this season. You could get him on a possible minor league deal if you really wanted to. A lot cheaper than Anthony Bass. It would make a lot more sense. He's been a lot better than Bass this season. So it's just, you know, and you could also go in-house. You could go Jordan Holloway. I mean, that guy's been pretty good off the bullpen. Eliezer's a guy who've always wanted in the bullpen. It makes sense. Injury prone. He could give you maybe 2 or 3 innings at most. So it just makes all the sense in the world to go in-house as well. But Anthony Bass just looks like he's starting to be that odd man out. And then the Marlins bring guys like Okun and Gunther, who have been pretty solid. I mean, quietly pretty solid players. Zach Pop is someone else who's been good.
Like him.
So the Marlins have a lot of guys who are a lot better than Anthony Bass, or at least have had better seasons than Anthony Bass. So I think it's just best to let him go at some point, but I would wait until spring training to make that decision.
Yeah, I would love to see Pop at after an off season of kind of fine tuning some things. So All right, we are coming up on the hour mark, and we are out of things to talk about because it's September, and that's what happens. So let's get to prediction time, everybody. The Marlins and Pirates. This is a real clunker of a series when you look at it. These two teams in September. Obviously, the Marlins dropped 2 of 3 to the Pirates last time.
3 of 4.
3 out of 4.
3 of 4.
3 out of
Sorry,
4.
3 of 4 when they were in Pittsburgh. That series was kind of where things
We
all
lost
unraveled. And yeah, that was where things all unraveled in the first half. Eliezer came back, was pitching great, got hurt running the bases. Sandy had one of those starts where he was fantastic and then couldn't get any run support. So it's just been that kind of that's really where it all unfolded. And now the Marlins, with the Pirates completely out of it. I mean, the Marlins are bad, but the Pirates aren't even over 55 wins yet. So they're at 54 and 92 coming in, of course, last place in the division, heading for another top 5 pick and right in the middle of the rebuild as they usually are. So the Marlins come into this series after this series with the Nationals, and I believe they hold a 2-game lead for that last place spot. Yep, they are 2 games ahead of the Nationals for the 4th place spot, which I don't know if anybody else really cares about it, but that's something I care about here in the back end of September. I do not want to see the Marlins at the bottom of the NL East again. So, Claudia, you are our guest. You've been wonderful. It's been great having you. Your prediction for the Marlins and Pirates. Are you going to be there this weekend?
I want to. I think I will be.
That's awesome. And what do you think is going to happen? Do you think the Marlins are going to – how do you think the Marlins shake out in this series?
Okay. Let's do wishful thinking. I'm going to say we sweep them.
Okay, awesome. Little ambitious, little optimism. Yeah, missing Noah's optimism on the stream today, but Claudia's bringing it. I enjoy that. That's awesome. So Claudia says Marlins sweep. Isaac, go ahead.
It's like she was reading my mind. I was thinking, you know what? We got Sandy on Sunday. On Sunday. We got Eliezer and Edward. I say they sweep these guys. Sandy, and let me end on this. Extend the fucking guy. This guy is just wow, man. Every single time. You look at his last 2 starts, look at his last 7 starts. He is top 1 pitcher in the National League right now. With DeGrom out, he's just phenomenal. He's the best player on this team. He's the best looking guy on this team. Sign him for 5 years right now.
Eli, go ahead.
I was thinking about a sweep as well, but the more that I went into it, I just know there's going to be that one game, probably with Anthony Bass. It could be any of the relievers, but Marlins are going to have a lead late, and it's going to be Brian Reynolds doing something amazing to kind of turn that game around, with the Marlins winning 2 out of 3.
And hopefully the Marlins, after that, turn to themselves and they say, wow, this guy needs to be in center field in Lone Depot Park next year. Kevin Barral, go ahead.
It's going to be the first time we're going to see 2 future Marlins, Jacob Stallings and Brian Reynolds in Marlins Park, Lone Depot Park, actually. That's what it's called now. Yeah, they're going to sweep. I think last time we all said sweep, it didn't end too well for us.
Yeah, that did not go well for all of us.
That was the Colorado game. But, yeah, they're going to sweep. I think Sandy's going to have a really good start. That's all I'm going to say. It's going to be a good game. We're going to see 2 future Marlins at it tomorrow at Lone Depot Park, and we're going to see, how they fit in the Marlins and how they're going to look in Lone Depot Park for next year.
Eli, please put this comment in the chat up on the screen right now. Please, exactly which one I'm talking about. Nathan I 9405907. You have the 2 comments of the year, sir. Congratulations to you. I love this idea. Bass and center, why not? This is a Peter Pratt type comment. Peter, if you're still watching, I know you were watching earlier. Shout out to you.
Miami loves these guys in different positions.
Yeah,
maybe
seriously.
Bass or Chris Taylor.
I love this. Bass, yeah. They're trying to turn Alfaro into Chris Taylor. Maybe they should try with Anthony Bass. Daniel Rodriguez, since you have the floor, go ahead.
I think the Marlins, when you play the Pirates, it usually doesn't go well for us. The Marlins face on the Sandy start to face Marlins legend Dylan Peters. But
I forgot about him completely.
I think the Marlins go 2-1. I think they might, fold in the first game, but they take the 2 games after that. I don't think Dylan Peters is going to throw a perfect game. I don't think he's going to do a little Max Scherzer on us. But I think 2-1 is about how the Marlins usually go against the Pirates.
I would be careful with that because usually former Marlins tend to really hurt the Marlins. So maybe Dylan Peters has his best start of his career.
Alex Carver, what should we expect from Edward Cabrera on Saturday, and what do you see happening in this series?
Well, I hope it's a lot better for Edwards' case. That's for sure. But yeah, no, battle of two 235 hitting teams. That's what it is. Both the Marlins and Pirates as a team hit 235. So
Jesus.
yeah, I mean, just
Oh my
you're looking forward to more horrible baseball. I mean, that last game of the last series was good, but I don't think there was very much quality baseball played outside of the homers. A lot of bad pitching. Yeah, just not good. But yeah, I think you could look forward to more of the same. If you want to avoid this series, you'd probably be doing your mental health a good favor. But yeah, the Pirates have thrown 24 quality starts this season, which was the worst in baseball. They have guys that have ERAs at least over 4, some of over 5 that are starting in this series. You got Sandy going Sunday. Edward, I really, really hope it's better. Eliezer, I always say you never know what you're going to get. I'll stick to that. So I'll go with a couple of you guys and go 2 out of 3. I really hate to say it, but I don't see a ton right now from Edward in terms of improvement. But hey, we'll see what they can do. We'll see where it goes. But yeah, 2 or 3 for me.
Yeah, I'm not giving up on Edward in any sense of the word yet. I know you're not for sure, but
oh no, I'm just talking about the right now
no.
where he is.
It's curious how he's been looking so far, and I think Craig Mish said this. It looks a lot like Sandy's start to his career, and so if he can kind of tap into whatever Sandy's tapped into, we all know his potential for sure. But talking about it, Alex, you talked about how they're both hitting 235. These are 2 of the bottom 3 teams in OPS this season. The Marlins are 28th at a 677 OPS, and the Pirates are tied for last at a 671 OPS with the Rangers. 2 abysmal offenses and 2 not great teams. But the Marlins are a lot better, and I think the Marlins are going to sweep here. I think I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to be hopeful. I think Edward Cabrera will pitch well this time out. But by 6:10 on Saturday evening, it's going to be the 3rd or 4th quarter of a very important game here in Gainesville. And I'm hoping that the Gators won't be behind by 30 points by then. So the Gators play Alabama this weekend. That's where all my attention will
if you
be.
guys want to talk about it.
What is it?
Is it making Nathan
Marlins.
the new manager? Because I think that could fly.
Is it?
Everyone's favorite Marlin, David Sampson, but I don't think anyone wants to talk about it.
No, we're good on
No,
David
no.
Sampson. This is a great day to ignore David Sampson. I think I need a shirt that says it's a great day to ignore David Sampson. That was a great tweet, Eli. But the Dolphins go up against the Bills this weekend. The Gators go up against Alabama this weekend. I'm sure the Canes are going to lose to a below average ACC team this weekend. So whatever you enjoy this weekend, if you enjoy the Marlins as well, enjoy your weekend. Go Gators, go Fish. We'll talk to you guys soon.